Okay, guys, so we are back with looking at William Shakespeare, The Tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. Today, we are just going to be powering through Act 1 now that we have looked at the chorus. So let's go ahead and jump into it. As a review, the prologue is basically Shakespeare saying, hey, these two guys, the Capulets and the Montagues, they have been fighting for years and years and years. Nobody really knows why, but two kids are going to fall in love, one from each family, and they are both going to take their own life because their love will never come to fruition. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, Act 1, Scene 1 takes place in the middle of Verona's streets. So this is in the middle of a market. We actually have the scene open up with the servants of the families. So we have servants who serve the Capulets. Then we also have servants who serve the Montagues. And in this scene, we see that the feud goes so far that even the servants themselves are continuing this feud. So these servants start this big fight in the middle of the streets, and it is not subtle. Okay, this is like flipping over tables, like the market is set ablaze. Okay, so let's go ahead and read. I will say most of these people that we see, the servants, we won't really see them again too much. We'll see one of them, but they're really just setting the stage for just how deeply rooted this feud goes in Verona. Okay, so Samson says, Gregory, on my word, will not carry coals? No, for then we shall be colliers. I mean, and we be in collier, we'll draw. Aye, while you live, we draw our neck out of collar. I strike quickly, being moved, but thou art not quickly moved to strike. A dog in the house of Montague moves me. To move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. Therefore, if thou art moved, thou runnest away. A dog of that house shall move me to stand. I will take the wall of any man or maids of the Montagues. That shows thee a weak sleeve, for the weakest goes to the wall. 'Tis true. And therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Therefore I will push Montague men from the wall and thrust his maids to the wall. The quarrel is between our masters and us their men. 'Tis all one, and I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with men, and I will be cruel with the maids, I will cut off their heads. The heads of the maids? Aye, the heads of the maids, or their maiden heads. Take it in with sense thou wilt. They must have taken in sense that felt it. Me they shall fill when I am able to stand. And 'tis known I am a pretty piece of flesh. 'Tis well thou art not fish. If thou hadst been poor John. Draw thy well. Here comes two of the house of Montague. So basically, all that's happening here is these two servants of the Capulet family are kind of going back and forth, talking a relative big game. They're kind of being witty, kind of making a couple puns about the language, and then they basically say that they would like assault not only Montague men but also the women. And one of them is like, it's not really. It's really over our masters, like this fight, this feud, the reason why these families hate each other. We don't even really know. But it has nothing to do with us. And he's like, yes, it does. And so off into the distance, they see two other servants who they know belong to the Montagues. So Samson says, my naked weapon is out. Quarrel, I'll back thee. So Samson's like, come on, I got your back. How? Turn thy back and run? Fear me not. No, Mary, I fear thee. Let us take the law of our sides. Let them begin. I will frown as I pass by, and let them take it as they list. Nay, as they dare. I will bite my thumb at them, which is a disgrace to them if they bear it. So their plan is to not start the fight, but to finish it. Basically, let the Montagues get really mad. And so they're trying to figure out how to get the Montagues mad. And they say, I'm going to bite my thumb at them. Okay, so this is what's starting this entire big fight that we're about to see. The fact that a servant from the Capulets is biting his thumb, which is basically equivalent to like flipping somebody off. Okay, so it is, it's rude, but it doesn't warrant a sword. Okay, so here's Abram, one of the Montague servants. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? I do bite my thumb, sir. Did you bite your thumb at us, sir? Is the law on our side if I say I? No. No, sir. I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I do bite my thumb, sir. Do you quarrel, sir? So he's basically asking, are you wanting to fight? Quarrel, sir. No, sir. But if you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as good a man as you. No better? Well, sir. Say better. Here comes one of my master's kinsmen. Yes, better, sir. You lie. Draw if you be men. Gregory, remember thy swashing blow. And then they start fighting. Okay? And so this is one of the reasons why reading Shakespeare is so difficult, because when you say, like, they fight, this is not like oh, let me wiggle my sword around. This is like a extreme fight. Like, people are running away, okay? I mean, completely demolishing this market. And everyone starts joining in. It's kind of like almost a mob scene at this point. And so we're going to have two members of the families come up. We're going to have Benvolio, who is on the Montague side. This is Romeo's cousin. And remember, anytime you see an O at the end, just kind of think they go with Romeo. So Benvolio, he goes with Romeo. And so Benvolio is our sweet baby Benny. He is trying to be the peacemaker. He's trying to stop the fight from happening, and he's going to try to kind of squelch it. Now, we also have Tybalt. Now, Tybalt is the cousin of Juliet. And again, we've not met Romeo nor Juliet at the very beginning. And Tybalt is deciding that he is going to start the fight again, right? Tybalt has been characterized as a very skilled fighter, but he is very short-tempered, he is very quick to anger, and he is looking for a fight always. We all know those people, right? The one people that are just like waiting for something to pop off, that's Tybalt, right? And so Benvolio is going to try to stop it. Tybalt starts it again. Benvolio says, "Part fools, put up your swords, you know not what you do." What? Art thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benvolio, and look upon thy death. I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword, or manage it to part these men with me. What? Drawn? And talk of peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell, all Montagues in thee. Have it thee, coward. And then they start fighting again. So Tybalt's like, you have your sword out, and you're trying to make peace? And he's like, I'm only using the sword right now, Tybalt, to like try to stop them. Like, it's no big deal. And he's like, I hate the word peace, as I hate hell and Montagues. And so it's like, that's aggressive, but okay. And so again, we see the little asterisk. They fight. Not a subtle fight. It's an explosion. So much so that all of the Capulets come out of all of their houses, because the Capulets are a pretty big family, and they all start kind of fighting together. We're actually going to see Juliet's dad kind of come out to the scene. So we have clubs, bills, and partisans strike, beat them down with the Capulets, down with the Montagues. So these are officers that are trying to break up the fight, basically like policemen. What noise is this? Give me my long sword. Ho! A crutch, a crutch! Why call you for a sword? So these are Juliet's parents. My sword, I say. Old Montague has come and flourishes his blade in spite of me. Thou villain Capulet, hold me not, let me go. Thou shalt not stir 1 foot to seek a foe. So we have kind of multiple scenes happening here. We have the Capulet family all coming and fighting with the Montague family. And then you see Juliet's family, or Juliet's mom and dad, kind of going into the scene. And then you also have Romeo's parents kind of coming into the scene as well. So again, this big, massive fight is breaking out, so much so that the prince is then called in. Now, the prince is basically like, kind of think about him as like the mayor of the city. Okay, he owns the city. Listen to what he says. It's really harsh ruling, but it really shows us just how bad this fight was. It says, rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, profaners of this neighbor-stained steel. Okay, so basically talking about your swords are stained with your neighbor's blood. Will they not hear? What ho, you men, you beasts, that quench the fire of your pernicious rage with purple fountains issuing from your veins. O pain of torture from those bloody hands, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground, and hear the sentence of your moved prince. 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word by the old Capulet, and Montague have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens cast by their grave beseeming ornaments, to yield old partisans and enhance as old cankereds with peace, to part your cankered hate. If ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. So what is he saying? He's saying this is the third fight that we have had to break up because of something stupid. He said is an airy word that has been kind of spread out of nothing, right? So something as small as biting a thumb, right, has caused this big uproar. And he's like, this is ridiculous. You are not only vandalizing, right, the street, but you're messing up everyone else's lives. Like we're trying to just like live, be chill, be calm, live our happy little lives in Verona, and because you guys are fighting, it's almost impossible. So he says, if you guys fight again, if you ever disturb our streets again, your life shall pay the forfeit of the peace. We will kill you, right? So whoever is caught fighting in the streets from Capulets or Montagues will be put to death, because absolutely not, this is getting out of hand. And then he basically wants to talk to them separately. So he says, you, Capulet, shall go along with me, and Montague, come you this afternoon. To know our further pleasure in this case, to old free town, our common misjudgment place, once more, on pain of death, all men depart. So he basically kicks everyone out on the streets, makes them go home, and the only people that are left on stage, since the Capulet's going to go get a talking to by the prince, would be Romeo's dad, which is Montague, Romeo's mom, which is Lady Montague, and Benvolio, baby Benny, his cousin. And so in this little scene that we see in the middle of scene 1, we're going to have Romeo's parents really characterize him as being really aloof, being very depressed. They're going to be asking Benvolio, who's really good friends. I mean, yes, they're cousins, but they're also close. Have you seen him? Have you seen Romeo? I don't know where he is. He wasn't here, thank goodness. But what's been going on with him? Let's kind of see this conversation. So Montague first asks, what happened with this fight? Who set this ancient quarrel new abroach? Speak, nephew. Were you by when it began? Here were the servants of your adversary and yours close to fighting ere did I approach. I drew to part them, and in the instant came the fiery Tybalt with his sword prepared, which as he breathed defiance to my ears, he swung about his head and cut the winds, who, nothing hurt withal, hissed him in scorn. While we were interchanging thrusts and blows, came more, and fought on part and part, till the prince came, who parted either part. Oh, and where is Romeo? Saw you him today? Right glad I am he was not at this fray. Fray is like a fight. Madam, an hour before the worship's sun peered forth the golden window of the east, a troubled mind drave me to walk abroad. So Benvolio was like, well, actually, about an hour after or before the sun rose today, I did kind of, feel, confused, frustrated, whatever, and I decided to go for a walk. He says, where underneath the grove of a sycamore, that western rooteth in the city's side, so early walking did I see your son. Towards him I made, but he was ware of me, and stole into the covert of the wood, I measuring his affections by my own, which then most sought, where most might not be found, being one too many by myself weary. Pursued my humor, not pursuing his, and gladly shunned, who gladly fled from me. So he says, I saw Romeo kind of sitting and kind of sulking under the sycamore tree, and when I went to go talk to him, he kind of shuddered back, made it basically clear, like, I'm not interested. Like when you're walking around Target and you meet like eye contact with somebody who like but you're not interested in talking to them, and you're like, and they like get the hint. That's what Benvolio is saying. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but he obviously did not want to talk to me. Which is weird, again, because Romeo and Benvolio are really, really close friends. It's not like an acquaintance, like they're buddies. So his dad says, many a morning hath he been there seen, with tears augmenting the fresh morning dew. So he's crying, adding to the clouds more clouds with his deep sighs. But also soon as this all-cheering sun should be the furthest east being drawn the shady curtains of Aurora's bed, away from the light steals home my heavy son, and private in his chamber pins himself and shuts his windows, locks fair daylight out, makes himself an artificial night, black and proportionous. much must this humor prove? Unless good counsel may the cause remove. So his dad says, I've actually seen him there a lot, and he's crying and he's upset, and I don't know what's going on. He is drawing all the curtains in his room and kind of locking himself in his room and making himself an artificial night. He's basically just sleeping all day. And he's like, obviously, something's going on with him. My noble uncle, do you know the cause? I neither know it nor can learn of him, so he's not telling me what's wrong. Have you inopportuned him by any means? Both by myself and many other friends, but he in his own affections counselor is to himself, I will not say how true, but to himself so secret and so close, so far sounding in discovery as is the bud bit with an envious worm, ere he can spread his sweet leaves to the air, or dedicate his beauty to the sun. Could we but learn from whence his sorrows grow, we would as willingly give cure as to know. So he's like, if I knew what was wrong with him, I absolutely would try to help him, but he's not letting anyone in. Oh, see where he comes. So please you step aside. I'll know his grievance, or be much denied. So at this point, Romeo's kind of coming into the scene. And Benvolio's like, you guys go. I'll see if I can talk to him, figure out what's been going on with him, why he's been like basically hiding away and not talking to anyone. I would thou wert so happy by thy stay to hear true shrift. Come, madam, let's away. So here's the conversation between Romeo and Benvolio. And I love this conversation because it shows just how much of a little baby Romeo is. Now, I'm going to give Romeo a really hard time in this entire story because he's unhinged. He really is. He is a really good example of like the most impulsive teenage boy you could ever hope and dream of meeting. And in this scene, we're going to see he's been so weepy and so sad because the love of his life doesn't love him back. She's not interested. And he's like, I hate everything. The world is on fire. And, I just want to wither away. Now, mind you, this is not Juliet. So you're going to see the discrepancies here. Okay. So let's watch this conversation unfold. Benvolio says, good morrow, cousin. Oh, is the day so young? But noon struck 9. He's like, it's at 9 a.m. Ay me, sad hours seem long. Was that my father that went hence so fast? It was. What sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? Not having that which having makes them short. In love? Out of love, out of her favor, where I'm in love. Alas, that love so gentle in his view should be so tyrannous and rough in proof. Alas, that love whose view is muffled still should without eye see pathways to his will. Where else shall we dine? Oh me, what fray was here? Yet tell me not, for I've heard of it all. Here's much to do with hate, but more with love. Why then, O brawling love, O loving hate, O anything of nothing first created, O heavy lightness, serious vanity, mishappen chaos of well-seeming forms, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, still walking, waking, sleep. This is not what it is. This love I feel, that feel no love in this. Dost thou not laugh? No, 'cause I'd rather weep. Good heart, at what? At thy good heart's oppression. So Romeo here is kind of being a little wild. And he's making a joke, but it's honestly kind of a morbid joke. It's kind of depressing because he's like, love and hate are like the same thing, right? Everything's just terrible. Everything's a contradiction. And he's asking Benvolio, like, why are you not laughing? That's a funny joke. And Benvolio's like, no, it's not. Like, that's really, like, low-key really sad. So Romeo says, why? Such is love's transgression, grief is mine own heavy, or lie heavy in my breast. Wilt thou wilt propagate, to have it breast with more of thine. Thou love that thou hast shown doth add grief to two of mine own. Love is a smoke, raised with the fumes of sighs being purged, and fire sparkling in lovers' eyes being vexed, a sea nourished with loving tears. What is else? A madness most discreet, a choking gall, a preserving sweet. Farewell, my coz. Soft, I will go along. If you leave me so, you do me wrong. Tut, I've lost myself. I'm not here. This is not Romeo. He's some other where. Tell me, in sadness, who is it that you love? What? And shall I groan and tell thee? Groan? Why no, but sadly, tell me who. Bid a sick man in sickness make his will. Ah, word ill urged me, one that is so ill. In sadness coven, I do love a woman. I aimed so near when I suppose you loved. A right good marksman. And she's fair, I love. A right fair mark, fair coz, as soon as hit. And in that hit you miss, she will not be hit with Cupid's arrow. She hath Dian's wit, and in strong proof of chastity well armed, for love's weak childish bow she lives uncharmed. So here we find out why Romeo's girl, we're going to learn her name is Rosalind, doesn't love him back, and she wants to live in chastity. She wants to become a nun. She has no interest in ever being married or ever being with men, so she says she will not be hit by Cupid's arrow. She's not going to fall in love. She's not interested. She will not stay in the siege of loving terms, nor bid the encounter of unsailing eyes, nor op her lap to saint-seducing gold. Oh, she is rich in beauty, only poor that when she dies, her beauty dies her sore. This is actually a common theme that we see with Shakespeare a ton. He wrote a ton of sonnets where he said that if a woman is beautiful, that it is almost like her duty to have children, because if not, she's wasting her beauty on the world, because she's not passing that beauty down. So it's interesting that we see this kind of reflected in his play as well. Then she hath sworn that she shall live chaste. She hath, and in that sparing, making huge waste for beauty starved with her severity, cuts beauty off from all prosperity. She's too fair, too wise, wisely too fair, to merit bliss by making me despair. She hath forsworn to love, and in that vow, do I live dead that live it to tell me now? Be ruled by me, forget to think of her. Oh, teach me how shall forget, by giving liberty into thy eyes. Examine other beauties. So Benvolio's like, there's other fish in the sea, right? Like, forget about her. Look at somebody else. And Romeo says, it's impossible. He says, 'tis the way to call her as exquisite in question more. These happy masks that kiss fair ladies' brows being black, put us in the mind they hide the fair. He that is struck and blind cannot forget the precious treasure of his eyesight lost. Show me a mistress that is passing fair. What doth her beauty serve but as a note, where I may read who passed the passing fair? Farewell, thou canst teach me not to forget. I'll pay that doctrine, or else die in debt. So that's the end of the scene. So we learn a lot about Romeo here. We learn that he is a helpless romantic, that he's very impulsive, and that he gets all up in his feelings really, really fast. This is going to be his tragic flaw pretty consistently in every single scene that he's in. This idea that he not only gets swept up in love, but he gets swept up in depression. He gets swept up in anxiety. He gets swept up in fear. He gets swept up in anger. He's just anywhere the whipping willow takes him. Okay, so let's look at scene 2. So scene 2 is really, really short. It is the scene where we meet Juliet's side of the family. We get to meet Juliet's dad, Capulet, and we also get to meet sweet little baby Paris. Now, Paris is a guy who's wanting to marry Juliet, and poor guy has no game. He is not very good at making himself desirable. Juliet's not interested in him, but I will say he is sweet. He's a sweet guy. We don't hate Paris, but he's not Romeo, okay? So in this scene, we're going to see he's actually going to Juliet's dad to ask for her hand in marriage. Now, we're going to learn here that she's young, and so Juliet's dad's not super excited about it, even though it wouldn't have been uncommon for her to have already been married, potentially with children at this time. Again, we're talking 1500s, so it is there. So her dad says, but Montague was bound as well as I, and penitently alike, and 'tis not hard, I think, for men so old as we to keep the peace. Of honorable recking are you both, and pity 'tis you lived at odds so long. He was like, yeah, I hate that you guys have been fighting for this long anyway. He says, but now, my lord, what say you to my suit? But saying over what I've said before, my child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years, so she's only 13. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride ere we may think that her ripe to be a bride. So he's saying, let her become 16. Once she's 16, I think, she'll be a little bit more mature. She'll be ready at that point to be married. And Paris argues back. He says, younger than she or a happy mother's maid. He's like, there's girls that already have kids. And Capulet says, and too soon marred, although so early made. He says, that's not always a good thing, right? They're not always happy. And so we get to see a little glimpse that Juliet's dad, at first, is kind, and he is, really wanting what's best for Juliet at the beginning. This does change. But we also learn a little bit of his motivation. He says, earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she. So when he's saying earth has swallowed all my hopes, he's saying that all of the other children that he had with his wife have passed. She's the only one who survived, which again, at this time, would not have been uncommon. But she is the hopeful lady of my earth. But woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. My will is her consent is but a part. And she agree with her scope of choice lies my consent and fair according voice. So he's like, if you can get her to fall in love with you, and you actually gain her heart, and she's ready to be married to you, then all right, I'll let her go ahead and get married. But that's my stipulation. You either wait 2 years or you make her fall in love with you. And then he invites him to a party that they're having at their house. He says, this night I hold an old accustomed feast, whereto I have invited many a guest, such as I love. And you among the store, one more most welcome makes my number more. At my poor house look to behold this night earth-treading stars that make dark heaven light. Such comfort as do lusty men feel, and well apparelled April on this hill. Look at how he's rhyming here. It's very, very poetic, very, very loving, right? Very romantic. The way that Shakespeare is kind of doing this type of rhyme scheme. It's totally switching it up from what we saw up here earlier. So he says, when well apparelled April on the hill of limping winter treads, even such delight among fresh fennel buds shall you this night inherit my house. Here all see, and like her most whose marriage shall be, which on more view and many mine being one, may stand in number, thou in reckoning none. Come and go with me. So he's like, if you can't get Juliet to fall in love with you, there's gonna be more fish in the sea. Okay, so again, I guess Verona's got a lot of young ladies. I don't know, because Benvolio had just told that to Romeo. So go, sire, trudge about. So he's talking to his servant at this point. Through fair Verona, and find those persons out whose names are written here, and to them say my house, and welcome their pleasure to stay. So he gives the list of everyone who's invited to this party to his servants, and he's like, go find these people in Verona and tell them, right? He can't text them, obviously, and be like, hey, low-key, come to my house, please. And so the servant has a problem, is he can't read. So he can't figure out who's invited, who's not invited. And he says this. He says, find them whose names are written here. Is it written that the shoemaker should meddle in the yard, and the tailor with his last, the fisher with his pencil, and the painter with his nets? He's like, I'm a servant. I can't read. But I am sent to find those persons whose name are here writ, and I can never find the names of that writing person here writ. I must to the learned in good time. So he's like, I must to the learned. I must go find people who can read this. And of course, who does he run into? Romeo. Romeo can read. He's very educated. He's so smart. And Benvolio obviously is with him. So Benvolio says, tut men, one fire burns out another's burning, one pain is lessened by another's anguish. Turn giddy and be holp by backward turning. One desperate grief cures another's languish. Take thou some new infection of thy eye, and the rank poison of old will die. Your plaintive leaf is excellent for that. For what, I pray thee? For your broken shin? Why, Romeo, art thou mad? Not mad, but bound more the madman is, shut up in a prison, kept without my food, whipped and tormented, and got done. Good fellow. So here's when he comes into grain with the servant. And again, Benvolio is trying to hype him up a little bit, but Romeo's like, I just want to be in my feels, okay? Let me be sad. So the servant says, God good Gideon, I pray, sir, can you read? Aye, mine own fortune is my misery. Sir, have you learned it without book? but I pray, can you read anything you see? Aye, if I know the letters in the language. You see, honestly. Rest you, Mary. And so again, Romeo's kind of being a little smart aleck to the servant, and the servant's like, all right, whatever. And he just starts to walk away. And Romeo's like, all right, I'll read the list. Look whose name is on this list. Rosalind, the love of his life. He says, Signor Martino and his wife and daughters, Count Aslam and his beauteous sisters, the lady widow of Vitervio, Signor Placido and his lovely nieces, Mercutio and his brother Valentine, mine uncle Capulet, his wife and daughters, my fair niece Rosaline, Livia, Signor Valentino and his cousin Tybalt. I see Tybalt again. Lucio and his lively Helena. A fair assembly. Whither should they come? Up. Whither? To supper? To our house. Whose house? My master's? Indeed, I should have asked you that before. Now, I'll tell you without asking. My master is the great rich Capulet, and if you not be of the house of the Montagues, I pray come and crush a cup of wine. Rest you merry. And then the servant saunters off, and so the servant invites Romeo and Benvolio, as long as they're not a Montague, to come to the party. However, they are Montagues. They're still going to go to the party. At the same ancient feast of the Capulets, sus my fair Rosaline, who thou so loves with all the admired beauties of Verona, come thither, and with unattained eye compare her face with some that I shall show, and I will make thee think thy swan a crow. So Benvolio's like, oh, we're going to that party, and I'm going to show you that there's prettier girls in Verona than Rosalind. We can literally compare them in real time, is what Benvolio's saying. And Romeo's like, bet. He says, when the devout religion of mine eye maintains such falsehood, then turns tears into fires, and these, who often drowned could never die, transparent heretics, be burnt for liars. One fairer than my love? Ugh, the all-seeing sun never saw her match since first the world begun. Ah, tut. Where you saw her fair, no one else being by, herself poised with herself in either eye. But in the crystal scales let there be weighed your lady's love against some other maid. That I will show you shining feast, and that she shall scant so well that now seems best. I will go along. No such sight shall be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of my own. So Romeo is like, you're not going to be able to show me anyone cuter than my girl Rosalind, but I'm going to go because I'm going to see if I can find her. Benvolio's like, oh, I'm going to go so I can show you that somebody else is prettier. Who is he going to meet at the party? Who is he going to meet at Juliet's house? Juliet. Okay, so in the next scene, scene 3, we actually meet Juliet for the first time, our sweet little baby girl. We're going to meet 2 other characters. We're going to meet her mom, Lady Capulet, as well as the nurse. Now, the nurse is interesting. The nurse and Lady Capulet are kind of like foils. They're complete opposite. Lady Capulet is very prudent, very vain, very strict, very orderly. The nurse, chaotic, wildly inappropriate. But she fiercely loves Juliet. She basically raised Juliet as her own because at the time period you would hire somebody like kind of like a live-in nanny to be a wet nurse and then to continue to raise your children if you had enough money. And so the nurse did most of Juliet's raising. However, Juliet doesn't look at the nurse as a mother. It's more of like a big sister or like an aunt figure, okay? And Lady Capulet is definitely still very much the one who is in charge of what Juliet's doing and her day-to-day activities, but the nurse is the one who's like kind of tromping along, making sure that Juliet's doing what she's supposed to do. And so I personally love this scene because you can see just how unhinged the nurse really is. So in scene 3, we're inside of Juliet's house. So Lady Capulet says, nurse, where's my daughter? Call her forth to me. Now by my maiden head, at 12 years old, I bade her come. What lamb, what ladybird? God forbid. Where's this girl? What Juliet? How now? Who calls? Your mother. Madam, I am here. What is your will? So in the scene again, we have Juliet kind of running around, coming up to her mom and asking, like, yes, you called? Like, what's up? What do you need? And Lady Capulet says, this is the matter. Nurse, give leave a while. We must talk in secret. So she asks the nurse to leave, and then very quickly says, Nurse, come back again. I've remembered me. Thou hearest our counsel. Thou knowest my daughter's of a pretty age. Faith, I can tell her age into an hour. She's not 14. I'll lay 14 of my teeth, and yet of my teen to have been spoken I have but 4. She's not 14. How long is it till Lammas tide? A fortnight and odd days. So here the nurse is going to be doing a really big monologue, how she's talking about she lost a daughter about the same time as Juliet was born, and so that's why she could be a live-in nanny, because she could breastfeed Juliet. So we learned Susan, her daughter, passed really, really early on, but then she came in to basically help raise Juliet. So she said, even or odd of all days of the year come Lammas Eve, at night shall she be 14. Susan and she, God rest all Christian souls, were of an age. Well, Susan is with God, and she was too good for me, but as I said on Lammas Eve, at night shall she be 14. That shall she marry. I remember it well. 'Tis since the earthquake now 11 years, and she was weaned. I'll never shall forget it, of all the days of the year upon that day, for I had laid wormwood of my dung, and sitting in the sun under the dove house wall, my lord and you were in Mantua. Nay, I do bear a brain. But, as I said, when I did taste the wormwood of the nipple of my dung, and felt it bitter pretty full, to see it touch you and fall out the duck. Shaken quoth the dove house, 'twas no need to trow, I bid to trudge. So she's talking about like weaning Juliet from breastfeeding. And since the time that it is 11 years, for she could stand high low, nay, be by thy rude, she could have run and waddled all about. And even the day before that she broke her brow, and then my husband, God be with his soul, A was a merry man, took up the child. Yea, quoth he, doth thou fall upon thy face? Thou wilt fall backward when thou hast more wit, wilt thou not, Juliet? And by my hoodman, the pretty wretch left crying and said, I. So this was a very inappropriate joke that the nurse made. She will continue to make this. Basically saying like, oh, she fell down forward and she hit her head, but saying that the nurse's husband said, oh, well, you're going to fall backwards one day when, you're a little smarter. It's kind of gross. To see how a jest came about. I warrant, and I shall live 1,000 years, and I shall never forget it. Wilt thou, Jewel, quote him in a pretty full, it stinted, and said, I. Enough of this, I pray thee, hold thy peace. Yes, madam. Yet I can't choose but to laugh and to think it should leave crying, saying, I. So Juliet's like, yeah, I'll fall back on my back. Basically for a guy. But she, agreed when she was a toddler. And yet I wore it, and it upon thy brow, a bump as big as the old cockerel stone, a perilous knock, and it cried bitterly, yes, quoth my husband, fallest upon thy face. Thou wilt fall backward when thou comest of age, wilt thou, Julian? It stinted, and said I. And stinted thou too? I pray thee, nurse, I say. Peace, I'm done. God mark thee by his grace. Thou wast the prettiest babe that e'er I nursed, and I might live to see thee married once if I had my wish. Married! Yes, that marry is the theme that I came to talk of. Tell me, daughter Juliet, how stands your disposition to be married? It is an honor I dream not of. An honor? Were not I thine only nurse, I would say thou hast sucked wisdom from my teat. Well, think of marriage now. Younger than you here in Verona, ladies of esteem are already made already mothers. By my count, I was your mother much upon these years that you are now a maid. Thus, then, in brief, the valiant Paris seeks you for his love. A man, young lady, he's such a man of all the world. Why, he's a man of wax. So basically saying, Paris wants your hand in marriage, and the nurse is like, oh, he is real cute. He's a man of wax. He's perfect. He's like a sculpture. And her mom says, Verona's summer hath not such a flower. Nay, he's a flower in faith, a very flower. What say you? Can you love the gentleman? This night you shall behold him at our feast. Read over the volume of young Paris's face, and find delight writ there in the beauty's pen. Examine every married lineament, and see how others lend content. And what obscured in this fair volume finds written in margent in his eyes, this precious book of love, this unbound lover to beautify him lacks a cover. The fish lives in the sea, and 'tis not much pride, and 'tis much pride for fair without the fair within to hide. That book in many eyes doth share the glory, and in that gold clasps like a golden story. So shall you share all that he doth possess, by making him yourself no less. No less, no bigger. Women grow by men, basically saying she's going to get pregnant by Paris. Lady Capulet again shuts that down. Speak briefly. Can you like Paris's love? So again, the nurse is kind of being inappropriate when talking to a 13-year-old, and Lady Capulet's like, stop talking. I'm talking to my daughter. Speak briefly. Can you like of Paris's love? And Juliet's very obedient at the very beginning of the play. She's a people pleaser. She wants to please her family. She wants to please her mother. She wants to be a good girl. And so she's going to do anything that she can in order to achieve that. And so she knows that her mom and her dad really want her to fall in love with Paris. And so she says, I look to like, if looking liking move, but no more deep will I dart mine eye than your consent gives strength to make it fly. So she's like, I'll try everything I can do to fall in love with him, but not more than you want me to fall in love with him. Like, I'll do your bidding. And then a servant comes up and says, Madam, the guests are come, supper is served up, you called, my young lady asked for, the nurse cursed in the pantry, everything is in extremity. I must hence to waste, I beseech you follow straight. I will follow thee. Juliet, the county stays. Go, girl, seek happy nights for happy days. So that is the end of scene 3. So now we have 2 more scenes until the end of Act 1. So in this scene is a very short scene of the Montague family, all of Romeo's, kind of going in masks and costumes to the Capulet Ball. Obviously, they have to wear costumes and masks because not only is it a masquerade costume party, but it is also not illegal. It is rude for Montague to go into the house of Capulet, right? Because we saw how just them walking past each other in the street. So obviously they have to be shielded somehow. And so in this scene, we're going to meet one new character named Mercutio, who is Romeo's best friend. Now, Mercutio is interesting. He's not technically a Montague, but he definitely falls on Romeo's side because they are buddies. He's actually kin to the prince, but he is a wild card. He is a class clown. He is always making fun of Romeo, and they dog on each other so bad. They really do mess with each other a lot. And Mercutio makes fun of Romeo for being a lover, for falling in love so easily, and for being a romantic. Mercutio doesn't think that love exists. He's like, there's no such thing as love. It's only lust. And you're just a dreamer. And dreamers are, falsifiers. They're stupid. So Romeo says, what shall this speech be spoke of our excuse? Or shall we be on without apology? The date is out of prolicity. We'll have no Cupid hoodwinked with a scarf, bearing a Tartar's painted bow of lath, scaring the ladies of a crow keeper, nor no without book prologue fairly spoke after the prompter for our entrance. But let them measure us by what they will. We'll measure them a measure and be gone. Give me a torch. I am not for this ambling, being but heavy. I will bear the light. So he's like, I'm not in the mood for a party. Let me just carry the torch. And here's Mercutio starting to make fun of him. Nay, gentle Romeo, we must have you dance. Not I, believe me. You have dancing shoes with nimble soles. I have soles of lead, so stakes me to the ground I cannot move. You are a lover. Borrow Cupid's bow and soar with him with a common bound. I'm to soar and pierce with his shaft, to soar with his light feathers. So bound, I cannot bound a pitch above dull woe. Under love's heavy burden do I sink. And to sink in, so you should burden with love, too great oppression of tender thing. Is love a tender thing? Is it too rough, too rude, too boisterous? Is it pricks like thorn? If love be rough with you, be rough with love. Prick love for pricking. You beat love down. Give me a case to put my vicious, that's very vicious. I can't say the word. Vicious in. A visor for a visor. What care I, what curious eye doth quote deformities? Here are the beetle's brow shall blush for me. Come, knock and enter. No sooner in, but every man betake him to his legs. A torch for me? Let wantons light of hearts tickle thy senseless rushes of their heels. For I am proverbed with the grandsire phrase. I'll be a candle holder and look on. The game was never so fair, and I'm done. So Romeo's like, I don't really want to go to this party right now. I'm not going to have like fun. I'm not going to drink and dance and do all the things. I'm just going to see if I can see Rosalind and just kind of sulk in my corner. And Mercutio's like, you are boring. Mercutio says, that. Duns the mouse, a constable's own ward. He's basically calling him like a do-gooder. If thou art done, we'll draw thee from the mirror, and sir reverence love wherein thou sickest up to the ears. Come, we bring daylight, ho! Nay, that's not so. I mean, sir, in delay we waste our light in vain. Like lights by day, take our morning meeting, our judging sits 5 times in that air, once in our 5 wits. And we mean well by going to this mask, and 'tis not wits to go. Why, may one ask? I dreamt a dream tonight. So did I. Well, what was yours? That dreamers often lie in bed asleep while they do dream things true. Ah, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. So Queen Mab is a really famous speech that that Mercutio is about to monologue for us. In this monologue, he's going to be talking about Queen Mab. Queen Mab is similar to like the Sandman. She is said to be similar to a fairy, and she comes to give people dreams. However, we know Mercutio doesn't believe in dreams. He doesn't believe in fate, destiny, love, all of the beautiful things in the world. And so he probably doesn't also believe in Queen Mab, right? He probably thinks that anything supernatural is false. But he talks about Queen Mab in a really interesting way, because he talks about her kind of like jovially, like, oh, she does all of this and she's so little and cute, and she makes people who love money dream of money. She makes people who love war dream of war. But then he starts getting really kind of depressed about it and really kind of aggressive, and he starts talking about like Queen Mab's also responsible for everything that stinks in the world, like when women have miscarriages, and so almost makes her a villain by the end of the speech, so much so that Romeo is going to have to calm him down. So let's kind of go through this and kind of see where Mercutio kind of loses it a little bit, and then we'll kind of see Romeo's dream and what he says his dream was. She is the fairy's midwife, and she comes in the shape no bigger than an agate stone on the forefinger of an alderman, so she's teensy, drawn with a team of little atimonies over men's noses as they lie asleep. Her wagon spokes are made of long spinner's legs, so spider legs, and the cover of her wings of grasshoppers, her traces of the smallest spider webs, her collars of the moon's watery beams, her whip cricket's bow, the lash of film, her Wagner, a small gray-coated gnat, not half so big as a round little worm, pricked from the lazy finger of a maid. Her chariot is an empty hazelnut, made by the joiner's squirrel or old grub. Timed out old maid mind the fairies' coachmakers, and in the state she gallops night by night through lovers' brains, and then they dream of love on courtiers' knees, and they dream of courteous straight over lawyers' fingers, and they dream of fees over ladies' lips, who straight on kisses dreams, which oft the angry Mab with blisters plagues, and their breath with sweetmeats tainted art. Sometimes she gallops over the courtier's nose, and he dreams of smelling a suit. And sometimes she comes with a tithed pig's tail, tickling a parson's nose as he lies asleep, and then he dreams of another benefice. Sometimes she driveth over a shoulder's neck, and then dream he of cutting foreign throats, of breeches and abascant does, and Spanish blades, and healths 5 fathom deep. Then anon, drums in his ear, at which he starts and wakes, and being thus frightened, swears a prayer or two and sleeps again. That is the very map that plaits the manes of horses at nights, and bakes the flocks of foul sluttish hairs, which once untangled this misfortuneous bodes. This is the hag whose maids lay on their back and presses them, and learns them first to bear, making them women of good carriage. This is she. And so he completely loses it, right? At first he's like, oh, she's like the little fairy, but then she starts like doing evil things. And so Romeo's like, ooh, this is getting weird. He says, peace, peace, Mercutio. Peace. Thou talkst of nothing. True. I talk of dreams, which are the children of an idle brain, begot of nothing but vain fantasy, which is as thin substance as the air, and more inconsistent than the wind, who woes even now frozen blossom from the north, and being angry puffs away thence, turning his side to the dew-dropping south. This wind you talks of blows us from ourselves. Supper is done, and we shall come too late. So Benvolio's like, we gotta go. Like, this is getting kind of weird. Let's just go to the party. Look at what Romeo's about to say here. It's very, very important. This is a perfect example of dramatic irony here. And honestly, here, this is he's talking to himself. He says, I fear too early. My mind misgives some consequence yet hanging in the stars. Shall bitterly begin his fearful date with this night revels and expired term of a despised life close in my breast, by some veil forfeit of untimely death. He says, I don't know what it is, but for some reason I really feel like tonight is going to be it's going to lead to my death. He's like, it's going to have an untimely death. It's going to expire the despised life close to my breast, my heart. He's like, I don't know what it is. It's just a feeling. It's like that intuition. It's a gut. But look at what he says next. He says, but he hath the steerage my course, direct my sail on, less gentlemen. He literally just said, I feel like I'm gonna die. Well, it's fate. Imagine this. You are walking down a very abandoned, creepy, terrifying looking alley in the middle of the night. And you're like, I feel like if I walk down that alley, I will die. You're not going to say, well, I had a good run. Let me just run down here anyway. Right? You're going to be like, maybe I'll find another way. Right? And so intuition is very powerful. Romeo believes in intuition. He believes in the power of fate. He believes in destiny. And so it's really interesting that he says that he really believes that fate is telling him that this party is going to lead to your death. Because he's like, well, it's fate. I can't do anything about it. There we go. But again, it's him not taking responsibility. It's him completely, just saying like, I can't, I can't control anything. I can't control what happens to me because it's all fate. It's all, misfortune. Then Valeria's like, let's go. And then they go. So now let's look at scene 4. So in scene 4, this is the last scene. This is when Romeo and Juliet are going to meet. This first little part we're not going to read. This is just this two servingmen. They're kind of they're kind of talking back and forth, and they are getting ready for the party. And then we have Juliet's dad. He says, welcome, young gentlemen, ladies that have their toes unplagued with corns. Ugh. Will walk about with you. My mistresses, which of you all will now deny to dance? She that makes dainty. She elsewhere hath corns. So if she's saying that she won't dance with you, it's because she's got nasty feet. Basically what he's saying. And I come near ye now. Welcome, gentlemen. I have seen the day that I have worn a visor, and can tell a whispering tale of the fair lady's ear with such as would please. 'Tis gone, 'tis gone, 'tis gone. You are welcome, gentlemen. Come, musicians, play. So at this point, Juliet's dad's probably already drunk. A hall, give room, and footed girls, more light to you knaves. and turn the tables up and quench the fire. The room is grown hot. Ah, sire, this unlooked-for sport comes well. Nay, Sid, good cousin Capulet, for you and I past our dancing days. For long 'tis now since last yourself and I were in a mask. By lady 30 years? What, man, 'tis not much. 'Tis not so much, 'tis not so much. 'Tis since the nuptial of Lucencio come Pentecost as quickly as it will. Some 25 years? Then we masked. So they're basically saying, like, we haven't been young bachelors in a long time. How long has it been? And the other Capulet's like, probably 30 years. And he's like, 30 years, geez. He's like, maybe it's just 25. 'Tis more, 'tis more. His son is elder, sir. His son is 30. Will you tell me that? His son was but a ward 2 years ago. What lady that with doth enrich the hand of yonder knight? I know not, sir. And then it cuts scene. So in this next line, in line 44, we have in the distance Romeo. Romeo goes into the scene and he's obviously looking for Juliet, right? He's looking for Rosalind, because that's the only thing that he cares about. And as he's kind of scanning the room, he stops because he sees Juliet. Now, he doesn't know who Juliet is. He's never seen her before. And look at what he says when he kind of watches her. And again, it's giving stalker, but Romeo's going to continue to give that vibe for a little while. So very quickly, he forgets all about Juliet, or Rosalind. Once he sees Juliet for the first time, he says, "Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. It seems she hangs upon the cheek of night as rich jewel in an Ethiop's ear, beauty too rich for use, for earth too dear. So shows a snowy dove troping with crows, as yonder lady over her fellows shows the measure done. I'll watch her place to stand, and touching hers make blessed my ruined hand. Did my heart love until now? Forswear its sight, for I've never saw true beauty till this night." So Romeo, again, getting swept up in his emotions, sees Juliet and says, "I've literally never seen somebody as beautiful as you. My heart, I'm in love with you. I'm in love with this girl that I see across the way who is in a mask and I don't know." We see the issue. Okay. Now, while he's talking to himself, Tybalt is kind of in the corner, and Tybalt hears Romeo's voice. He doesn't see him, but he hears that Romeo is around because they know each other. They've been in Verona for a while. And Tybalt says, "This by his voice should be a Montague. Fetch me my rapier, boy," so his sword. "What? Dares the slave come hither, covered with an antic face, to fleer and scorn at our solemnity? Now, by the stock and honor of my kin, I'll strike him dead, and hold it not a sin." So Tybalt's like, "I'll kill him when I find out where he is." Because, he just hears him. And he says, "Why? How now, kinsman? Wherefore storm were you so?" So Juliet says, like, "Why are you freaking out so much?" "Uncle, this is a Montague, our foe, a villain. This is, that is hither come to spite and to scorn in our solemnity this night, so our fun." Look at what Juliet's dad said. This is so important, and a lot of people miss this. But how Juliet's dad talks about Romeo here is so important. So Capulet is looking around, and he sees at this point Romeo off to the distance. And again, they're not talking. It's kind of like on either sides of the stage. Juliet's dad says, "Oh, young Romeo, is it? 'Tis he, that villain Romeo." Remember, Tybalt's a firehead. He just wants to fight anyone. Big anger issue. Look at what Juliet's dad says. He says, "Content thee, gentle coz, let him alone. Bears him like a portly gentleman, and to say truth, Verona brags of him to be a virtuous and well-governed youth. I would not for the wealth of all this town here in my house do him disparagement. Therefore be patient, take no note of him. It is my will, the which if you respect, show a fair presence off, and put these frowns in ill-beseeming semblance of a feast." So Capulet says, "Oh, that's Romeo. He's actually a good guy. He's chill. Yeah, I know he's a Montague, but like they actually say that he's a good kid, right? And so just leave him alone. He's just here having fun," which I feel like that's a big deal, right? Capulet earlier was just like wanting to take off the heads of any of the Montagues, but that he sees as Romeo at his house, trying to, sweep up his women and his wine, he's like, it's okay. Romeo's chill. He's a good guy. The reason I think this is so important is because it really begs the question is if Juliet just would have told her dad that they were in love, could it have worked? I don't know, because Juliet's going to keep this a secret. Their love that they're about to have. They never really communicate that with either of their parents. And so the scene, I feel like, is very intentional by Shakespeare because it's really a good indicator that, I don't know, maybe they could have worked. Maybe they didn't have to kill themselves. Maybe they could have lived happily ever after. It fits when such a villain is a guest. I'll not endure him. So Tybalt's like, no, I'm going to kill him. Juliet says, he shall be endured. What good man, boy? I say he shall. Go to. Am I the master here or are you? Go to. You will not endure him? God shall mend my soul. You make immunity among my guests. You shall cock a hoop. You'll be a man. Why, uncle, 'tis a shame. Go to, go to. You are a saucy boy. I love that part. Isn't it so? Isn't it so indeed? This trick may chance to scathe you. I know what. You may contrary me? Marry, 'tis time. Well said, my heart. You are a princox. Go, be quiet. Or more light, for shame, I'll make you quiet. What? Charlie, my hearts. So he's really mad at Tybalt because Tybalt's wanting to make a big scene. And Lord Capulet's like, I'm not wanting to ruin my party. Okay, so you need to listen to me. This is my house. These are my rules. I am the Lord. So the fact that you're even going against my word right now is really aggravating. And Tybalt says, patience preforce with willful collier meet, make my flesh tremble in the different greeting. I will withdraw. My intrusion shall, now seeming sweet, convert to the bitterest gall. So we see here that Tybalt does ultimately listen to Lord Capulet, but we are going to learn that he is going to try to make up for it and get revenge somehow. So on the other side of the stage, we have Romeo and Juliet about to have this really weird discussion. Romeo's kind of behind her, stalking her again. I'm telling you, the stalker vibes are immaculate in this play. And Romeo is going to basically grab Juliet's hand, and Juliet's going to be incredibly startled. And Romeo's basically going to be begging her for a kiss. And this is the best pickup line ever, because Romeo's like, can we please just kiss? Juliet's like, no, I'm cool. Like, we're not gonna kiss. And he's like, let's be saintly. And like how saints put their hands together or their lips together to pray. Let us put our lips together to pray. And Juliet's like, okay, it works. It's weird. If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, this gentle sin is this, my lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth the rough touch with a tender kiss. So he's like, did my hands are so unworthy to touch this girl's hand that I have to kiss it, right? Because my lips are pilgrims and they're going to, get rid of the rough touch. Ugh. Juliet says, good pilgrim, you do wrong with your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss. So they pray. They don't kiss, right? Because Romeo kissed Juliet's hand. And Romeo says, well, have not saints lips and holy palmers too? Aye, pilgrims have lips that they must use in prayer. Oh, then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray. Grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. Saints don't move, though grant for prayer's sake. Then move not, while my prayer effect I take. Thus my lips, by thine my sin is purged. And they kiss! He kisses her! It works. Pick up line. I'm telling you, take note. Juliet says, then I have my hands the sins that they do took. Sins from my lips? Oh, trespass sweetly urged. Give me my sin again. And so Juliet's like, oh, your prayer worked. I took all of your sin. You're absolved, right? And Romeo's like, oh, you took my sin. I have to give it back. Take it back. So then they kiss again. And kiss by the book. So you're a good kisser. Madam, So the nurse kind of crashes this party. Your mother craves a word with you. What is your mother? And Juliet runs off. So the nurse sees Romeo, again not knowing who he is. Mary Bachelor, her mother is the lady of the house, a good lady and a wise and virtuous. I nursed her daughter that you talked to withal. I'll tell you, he that get a lay hold of her shall have the chink, so get a lot of money. Is she a Capulet? Oh dear Count, my life is my foe's debt. So this is when Juliet or Romeo figures out that Juliet, this woman that he's fallen in love with, because he's kissed her twice. Yes, we can agree the comedy there. But he says, I I can't believe I just kissed a Capulet. Like I didn't know that. And Benvolio's like running him away because the party's ending. And Benvolio's like, away, be gone, the sport is at its best. Ay, so I fear the more is unrest. Nay, gentlemen, prepare not to be gone. We have a trifling foolish banquet towards, is it even so? Why then I have thank you all. I thank you honest gentlemen, good night. More torches here. Come on then, let's to bed. Ay, sire, by my fay, it waxes late. I'll to my rest. And so everyone is gone now at this point except the nurse and Juliet. So the nurse says, come hither, nurse. What is yonder gentleman? She's kind of pointing at Romeo off in the distance. Like, who is that guy over there? Do you know his name? Because again, Juliet's in love with him, supposedly. But she doesn't know what his name is. The nurse says, the son and the heir of the old Tivier? What's he that is now walking out the door? Mary, I think he's the young Petruchio. So she's asking all the other guys to not, like, basically make it obvious that she's talking about Romeo. What he that follows the heir that would not have danced? I know not. Talking about Romeo. Go ask his name. And if he's married, my grave is like to be my wedding bed. So she's like, I'll just die if he's already married. His name is Romeo, and a Montague, the only son of your great enemy. Juliet says, my only love sprung from my only hate, too early seen, unknown, and known too late. Prodigious birth of love is it to me that I may love a loathed enemy. So Juliet's like, I found love with an enemy. Great, this is awesome. And the nurse kind of hears her and she's like, what's this? What'd you say? And Juliet's like, it's a rhyme I learned even now of one I danced, right? And so she's like, it's just something I heard, I don't know. And the nurse says, come, let's away. The strangers are all gone. And that's how it ends. So the themes that are already being developed are palpable. We got some complex characters with Romeo being unhinged. We got the complexity of Juliet's character wanting to be the people pleaser, but also now loving somebody who she could never love, right? We have this idea that Romeo is always going to fall in love with fate, and this idea that he is not responsible for his own actions because, it's predestined at this point. We see the impulsivity of young love and love at first sight, and if it's real, if it's not, I don't know. Only time will tell. Until we see Act 3.